South Korea is a country in East Asia known for its food and K-pop. A neighboring country of Korea is Japan. Due to the closeness of those two countries, many may believe that South Korea and Japan are in good relations. However, the truth is that they have never been in a good relationship. For centuries, there have been tension between Japan and South Korea due to the Japanese imperialism in South Korea in 1910. Till today, the dark and painful event is not forgotten by the South Koreans. What exactly happened between the two countries, and what was the cause of the tension?
The Japanese imperialism in South Korea was caused by Japan's desire to make Koreans a part of themselves. Japan's annexation was illegal as Korea was forced to sign the treaty. Japan made a significant impact on South Korea. Today, Korea's culture and history are greatly affected by the invasion of Japan.
Going back to before the start of the war in 1910, on November 9, 1905, Ito Hirobumi, a Japanese prime minister, went to Hansong and asked the Emperor of Korea, Gojong, to sign the Japan-Korea Protectorate Treaty, also known as the Yosa Treaty. Gojong refused to sign the treaty as the agreement said that Korea would be a Japanese protectorate and Japan would have control over Korea's foreign affairs. However, 5 officials working under Gojong signed the Yosa Treaty, betraying South Korea. Gojong did not have enough power to go against them, so he had to sign the treaty by force. In 1910, Japan successfully took control of Korea through the treaty without the consent of Gojong.
Because Korea was controlled by Japan, Koreans were forced to do many things. The Koreans were deprived of freedom, and they did not have any rights as humans. Japanese forced Koreans to learn their language, culture, tradition, and history. Talking about history, they burned hundreds of Korean history books, so a whole fraction of Korean history is now gone. They grew plants and living things that were not recognizable by Koreans, and they also pulled out the big issue of comfort women. Korean women were used to sleeping with the Japanese soldiers to keep up with their entertainment and lustful desire. If the woman did not act in a certain way, they could be killed. Japan tried to force Koreans to change their religions and worship at Shinto shrines. They threatened Christians to bow down to idols and worship other gods. If they did not do as they were told, they were sent to prison. These threatening actions destroyed Korea's religion and its culture. The Japanese rule over Korea came to an end in 1945 as Japan had to surrender in World War II. The armed forces of the US and the Soviet Union occupied the region. The surrender of Japan was due to the dropping of the atomic bomb in Japan. The US took action to end the war. It was the first time a country ever used atomic weapons during wartime. In the first bombing in Hiroshima, approximately 80,000 were killed immediately, and around 60,000 slowly died after the bombing. In the second bombing in Nagasaki, over 600,000 people were killed. While in Korea, they had to experience a division between the two sides of the country, North and South. The two governments and different economic systems were the Northern Soviet Civil Administration, which is North Korea, and the Southern US Army military government, which is South Korea. The whole conflict started with the Korean War when the North decided to strike the South. The nation was divided by the 38th parallel, but the North decided to strike and tried to take control of the South, which was not a happy ending for Korea after the Japanese rule. However, in 1965, the Treaty on Basic Relations between the two nations, Japan and Korea, declared a treaty. Japan paid around how much the Koreans lost. Let's bring us back to the reason why Japan wanted to take over Korea. The reason is simple. Look at how Hitler dealt with the Jews and the Russians. Korea had living space, resources, slave labor, and many Korean women were actually beautiful. Japan wanted to rule the world, and South Korea and China were the first steps. South Korea and China were near Japan, so it was easier for them to control the two countries. Japan took over South Korea to remove the culture that was within and the history. They wanted to see the main characters of Asia. They also focused on industrializing the country just for Japan. They used South Korea's land, property as a chance to develop their country and industrialize it.
Japan's attack on Korea impacted the country significantly. Not only were the citizens and the land affected, but the culture of South Korea was also greatly affected. During the annexation of Korea, Japan wanted to eliminate and get rid of Koreans' identities and make them a part of the Japanese. To do so, Japanese officials burned around 200,000 ancient Korean historical texts, and Koreans were not allowed to publish newspapers without the permission of the Minister of Home Affairs. Students at schools were forced to speak Japanese, and they were taught in Japanese. Japan pressured South Koreans to change their last names to a Japanese one. Nearly 84% of Korean families changed their surnames to escape Japanese discrimination. Today, not much of the Korean historical information we have today is written by the Japanese, not Koreans. The Korean language changed a lot, and numerous Japanese languages were added to the Korean language. Till today, the impact Japan had on Korea remains.
Throughout the war, Koreans continuously fought against the Japanese, and their patriotism was shown throughout. The torture and the oppression of Japan did not stop the Koreans from protesting. After many years, the invasion of Japan has not been forgotten. Till today, the tension between South Korea and Japan still exists. The suffering and the traumatic event of South Koreans is very unforgettable. South Korea still yet has the exploitation of the culture and the environment. The reflection we had was the importance of the after effects of a war or imperialism. As we see South Korea still going through its after effects today, we realized how important the result is in a war or just in any pressure situation of another government. In addition, as Koreans, we always take this issue into consideration of Japan and Korea's relationship. Today, South Koreans are still demanding an apology from the Japanese emperor, as they believe that the emperor's ancestors are the ones to blame. However, we believe that continuing to demand for an apology will not solve this problem. Although Koreans have the right to resent, they should realize that the Japanese people from generations were the ones who took action to torture and take control of Koreans. Holding a grudge against the Japanese in the present will not change anything. We believe that Japan and Korea should open up their economic trades between each other and become trade partners, as it may bring the two countries closer together. Through this, in the future, Korea and Japan's relationship will become normal, and Koreans will no longer have the resentment towards the Japanese.